Chapter 1: The Spark of Curiosity. It is the year 1490, and Matteo has just arrived in Florence, a city that pulses with the rhythms of intellectual and artistic innovation. The Renaissance is in full swing, and Florence is its heart. The streets are alive with the chatter of merchants, artists, and scholars, all contributing to the golden age of human achievement. Despite the vibrancy of the city, Matteo feels a sense of unease as he steps off the coach and onto the cobbled streets, for he is a young man caught between two worlds, the world of the church, which has long been the arbiter of knowledge, and the world of reason and discovery that is beginning to emerge. Matteo's family, devout and loyal to the church, sent him to Florence to study theology. But Matteo, a man of quiet thoughtfulness, has always felt a pull toward something more. The church, with its vast cathedrals and solemn rituals, has always seemed to dominate his life, but it has also made him wonder about the world beyond its walls. As a child, he had been told that all knowledge came from God, but his growing fascination with the natural world made him wonder, could there be more to the story? One crisp morning, Matteo enters the bustling University of Florence. The halls are filled with students, all engaged in study or conversation, but Matteo's eyes are drawn to something unusual, a stack of books. They are not the usual religious texts, but ancient writings in Latin and Greek, works by philosophers such as Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. These books had been largely forgotten, their teachings overshadowed by the Church's authority. Matteo's fingers tremble as he picks up one of the volumes. As he opens the pages, he discovers a world of ideas that challenges everything he has been taught. In the days that follow, Matteo becomes absorbed in these texts. He spends hours in the university's library, reading the works of ancient thinkers who spoke of logic, reason, and the human ability to shape the world. Plato's dialogues, with their discussions of forms and ideals, seem to unlock a new way of seeing the world. Aristotle's treatises on natural philosophy stir a sense of wonder in Matteo, as he begins to question the doctrines he was raised with. How could these ancient thinkers have known so much about the natural world? How could they have understood so much about the workings of the universe? Despite his growing excitement, Matteo feels the weight of the Church's presence. The Inquisition is always watching, and heresy is a crime punishable by death. There are whispers of scholars who have been burned at the stake for daring to challenge the teachings of the Church. Matteo is torn. His growing intellectual curiosity pulls him away from the rigid structure of his faith, but he knows that to question the Church is dangerous. Yet, in the depths of his heart, Matteo feels a stirring, a sense of something greater, something that cannot be ignored. One evening, Matteo attends a gathering at the home of his mentor, Father Giovanni, a respected member of the clergy who has guided his studies. Father Giovanni is a man of great learning, but his loyalty to the Church runs deep. As they sit together in a dimly lit room, Matteo cannot suppress his excitement. He speaks of the ideas he has discovered in the ancient texts, the notion that the earth is not the center of the universe, the idea that reason and observation can reveal truths about the world that are independent of religious doctrine. Father Giovanni listens intently, but his face grows pale as Matteo speaks. "You must be careful, Matteo," he warns, his voice low. "These ideas may seem appealing, but they are dangerous. The Church has the divine authority to interpret truth. To question it is to risk everything. Do not let your curiosity lead you into peril." But Matteo, young and eager, feels something stir within him, a conviction that knowledge should not be confined to the walls of the church. He thanks Father Giovanni, but the words of his mentor do little to dampen his excitement. Instead, they only fuel his desire to know more. That night, as Matteo walks back to his humble lodgings, the city around him seems to whisper. The stars above twinkle in the sky, and for the first time, Matteo feels the universe stretching before him, vast and full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. The journey of knowledge, Matteo realizes, has just begun. Chapter 2: The Influence of the Church. Florence, 1491. The city hums with the energy of the Renaissance, yet the shadow of the church looms large over all aspects of life. It is the church that dictates the morals of society, the education of the youth, and the direction of knowledge itself. Its influence is as vast as its wealth, and its grip on Florence, and much of Europe, is unshakable. Matteo, though filled with the excitement of his discoveries, cannot escape the pervasive power of the church. His days at the university are spent with professors who, though learned, are deeply entrenched in the ways of the clergy. The books he reads and the questions he asks only seem to reveal a growing divide between the new ways of thinking and the established order. His newfound intellectual curiosity begins to conflict with the teachings he has received from Father Giovanni, who is steadfast in his belief that the Church is the final authority on truth. One afternoon, Matteo sits in the university's lecture hall, his mind racing with the ideas he has encountered in the works of Plato and Aristotle. The lecture, however, is on a much more familiar subject, Scripture. Professor Bonadetti, a venerable figure in the academic community, stands before the class, lecturing on the Church's interpretation of the Bible and its absolute authority over spiritual matters. All knowledge, Professor Bonadetti proclaims, is rooted in divine wisdom. To question the teachings of the Church is to question God's will. The words resonate through the room like a weighty verdict. Matteo feels the conflict stir within him. The very ideas he has been exploring, the notions of reason and natural law, seem to be at odds with the view that the Church has the sole power to define truth. After the lecture, Matteo approaches Professor Bonadetti, a respected theologian, and hesitates before asking, "But Professor, if reason and observation can reveal truths about the natural world, how can we be sure that our understanding of the world is complete? Should we not always seek to expand our knowledge, even beyond the boundaries the Church has set?" Professor Bonadetti's eyes narrow. He looks at Matteo with a mix of caution and concern. "Young man, I understand your curiosity, but there are dangers in questioning the Church's authority. The Church is divinely appointed to guide us, and the knowledge we possess is a gift from God. To search for answers outside of its teachings is not only dangerous, it is heretical." Matteo feels a pang in his chest, but he does not relent. "But Professor, what if the teachings of the Church are only a part of the truth? Is it not possible that there is more to discover?" The professor's face hardens, and he places a hand on Matteo's shoulder. "Beware, Matteo. The path you are beginning to walk may lead you into darkness. The Church has protected us for centuries from the dangers of forbidden knowledge. Do not forget that." As Matteo walks out of the lecture hall, the weight of the conversation lingers in his mind. The warmth of his curiosity burns ever brighter, but he knows that it is a dangerous flame. The more he learns, the more he is aware of the tightrope he walks. The Church is not just an institution, it is the foundation of all knowledge and authority in this world. To challenge it is to challenge the very fabric of society itself. Later that evening, Matteo sits in his small study, surrounded by the forbidden texts he has borrowed. He opens a page of Copernicus De Revolutionibus Orbium Celestium, his heart racing as he reads the passage that claims the Earth is not the center of the universe. This is heresy, Matteo knows. Yet the beauty of the argument is undeniable. Could it be possible? Could the very structure of the universe be different from what the Church has taught? The sound of footsteps on the stairs outside his room snaps him out of his reverie. His mentor, Father Giovanni, enters the room, his face grave. "Matteo," he says softly, closing the door behind him. "I know what you have been reading." Matteo's heart sinks. "Father Giovanni, I?" "No more of this," the older man interrupts. "The texts you are reading, the ideas you are entertaining, these are dangerous. The Church has guided us for centuries, and it is not for you, or anyone, to question its authority." Matteo feels a sense of loss wash over him. Father Giovanni is not just his mentor, he is a father figure, a man he respects deeply. To defy him, to defy the Church, feels like a betrayal. Yet Matteo cannot silence the voice within him that yearns for truth, no matter where it leads. "I cannot ignore what I have learned," Matteo says quietly. "There is a world beyond what the Church has shown us, a world full of mysteries waiting to be discovered." Father Giovanni looks at him, a mixture of sadness and understanding in his eyes. "Be careful, Matteo. Curiosity is a noble pursuit, but not when it threatens to tear apart the foundation of your faith." As Father Giovanni leaves the room, Matteo is left alone with his thoughts. The battle within him has only just begun. The world of knowledge is opening up before him, but it comes at a great cost. The more he learns, the more he risks losing everything he has known, the respect of his mentor, the approval of his family, and, perhaps, even his place in the world. But for the first time, Matteo feels the weight of his decision. He is no longer just a student of the Church, he is becoming a student of the world. The knowledge he seeks is not confined to the narrow path laid before him. There is more to the world, and he will stop at nothing to discover it. Chapter 3: The Forbidden Texts. Florence, 1492. Matteo's mind is a whirlwind of ideas. The more he delves into the forbidden texts, the more he begins to see the world in a new light. The works of ancient philosophers, the rediscovery of Greek and Roman wisdom, the writings of Copernicus, all of these have unlocked something deep within him. The questions that have plagued his thoughts for years now have potential answers, but those answers lie beyond the confines of what is accepted by the Church. One evening, Matteo is invited to a secret gathering of like-minded intellectuals. It is held in a quiet corner of the city, far from the prying eyes of the clergy. The gathering takes place at the home of a wealthy merchant, Lorenzo di Santi, who has become a patron of the arts and sciences. Lorenzo, a man of considerable influence, is known for his interest in the new ideas that are sweeping across Europe, ideas that challenge the Church's grip on knowledge. As Matteo enters the dimly lit room, he is greeted by a small group of scholars, artists, and philosophers, each more eager than the last to discuss the ideas that are shaking the foundations of traditional thought. The air is thick with excitement as the conversation turns to the works of Copernicus, whose De Revolutionibus Orbium Celestium has begun to circulate in secret among intellectuals. Lorenzo stands at the center of the group, holding a copy of the book in his hands. This, he says, his voice filled with reverence, is the future of knowledge. Copernicus has shown us that the Earth is not the center of the universe. His ideas may be dangerous, but they are true. The heavens are not controlled by divine will alone, they are governed by natural laws that we can understand through observation and reason. Matteo listens intently, his heart racing with a mixture of awe and fear. The implications of Copernicus' ideas are enormous. If the Earth is not the center of the universe, what else might be wrong with the Church's teachings? Could it be that the Earth is not the center of creation, but rather one small part of a vast and infinite universe? As the conversation continues, Matteo finds himself drawn into a discussion of other forbidden texts. Lorenzo produces a manuscript, a copy of a work by the ancient Greek philosopher, Archimedes. This, Lorenzo says with a grin, is a treasure, unlike anything the Church has allowed to be taught for centuries. Archimedes understood the principles of mathematics and mechanics in a way that far surpassed anything the Church has acknowledged. His work on levers, pulleys, and the theory of the buoyancy of water changed the way we see the world. The room falls silent as Matteo takes the manuscript in his hands. The delicate pages seem to hum with the weight of their contents. He reads a few passages and is struck by the brilliance of Archimedes' insights. In these texts, he sees a world where reason and observation are the keys to unlocking the mysteries of nature, not divine revelation. The thrill of discovery washes over him. For the first time in his life, Matteo feels as though he is touching the very essence of truth. But as he looks around the room at the faces of his fellow scholars, a shadow of doubt creeps into his mind. The Church is powerful. It controls the very fabric of society, and its Inquisition is known for its ruthlessness. To be caught with these texts is to invite disaster. Matteo, Lorenzo says softly, sensing his hesitation, do you understand what this means? The Church has controlled knowledge for too long. These texts are our birthright, they belong to us, to all of humanity. They show us that the universe operates according to laws that can be understood, not just through faith, but through reason. Matteo nods, but a sense of unease lingers. The excitement of the evening is tempered by the reality of what is at stake. He has heard stories of scholars who were burned at the stake for heresy, of thinkers whose works were banned and destroyed by the Church. Galileo, in the future, will be condemned for daring to suggest that the Earth revolves around the Sun. Yet here, in this room, a new vision of the world is being born. As the night draws to a close, Matteo finds himself holding the manuscript of Archimedes in his hands. Lorenzo presses it into his grasp. Take this, Matteo. Study it. The truth will set you free. When Matteo returns to his lodgings that evening, the manuscript feels heavy in his hands, not because of its physical weight, but because of the burden of knowledge it represents. He knows that by reading it, he is crossing a line. The Church has forbidden such works, and yet, here he is, embracing them as if they were his own. The flickering candlelight casts long shadows on the walls as Matteo sits down at his desk. He opens the manuscript, his hands trembling with anticipation. The words on the page are not just ideas, they are a revelation, a new way of seeing the world. For the first time, Matteo feels that he is standing on the edge of something monumental. The old ways of thinking are crumbling, and a new era of understanding is dawning. But as he reads, a chill runs down his spine. He knows that this journey will not be without consequence. The Church will not tolerate the spread of these ideas. The Inquisition will be watching. To continue on this path is to risk everything: his future, his reputation, and perhaps even his life. But for Matteo, the pursuit of knowledge has become a calling that he cannot ignore. He has taken the first step into a world of forbidden wisdom, and there is no turning back now. Chapter 4: The First Test of Faith. Florence, 1493. The days grow longer, and Matteo finds himself in a whirlwind of new thoughts, new questions, and new discoveries. His nights are spent poring over ancient manuscripts, reading the forbidden works of Copernicus, Archimedes, and other intellectual giants who have dared to challenge the conventional wisdom of the Church. The more he learns, the more he feels the tug of something deep within him, a need to understand the true nature of the universe. But as his knowledge grows, so too does his fear. Matteo has crossed a line, and he knows it. The Inquisition's shadow looms over every intellectual gathering, every book exchange, and every whispered conversation about the works of the great thinkers of the past. His mentor, Father Giovanni, continues to warn him of the dangers of heresy, but Matteo can no longer silence the voice that urges him to seek truth, no matter the cost. It is one evening, while attending a lecture on the nature of the universe, that Matteo feels the first true test of his faith. The lecturer, a learned scholar named Francesco, is speaking on the teachings of Aristotle, particularly the idea that the Earth is the center of the universe. It is a doctrine that the Church holds dear, as it is believed to be the divine order of creation. Matteo listens in silence, his mind racing as he recalls the works of Copernicus, which suggest that the Earth is not the center, but merely one planet among many, revolving around the Sun. It is a radical idea, one that shakes the very foundation of the Church's understanding of the cosmos. As Francesco continues to extol the virtues of Aristotle's model, Matteo's discomfort grows. Finally, unable to keep his thoughts to himself, Matteo raises his hand. The room falls silent as all eyes turn to him. Francesco nods, inviting him to speak. "Excuse me, Professor," Matteo begins, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "But is it not possible that the Earth is not the center of the universe, as Copernicus suggests? Could there be another truth, one that we have yet to discover?" A murmur ripples through the room. The scholars around Matteo exchange uneasy glances. Francesco's expression hardens, and he fixes Matteo with a stern gaze. "Matteo," he says, his voice cold, "such ideas are dangerous. They challenge not only the wisdom of Aristotle, but the very teachings of the Church. To question the Earth's place in the universe is to question the divine order itself." Matteo feels a lump form in his throat. His heart pounds in his chest as the weight of his words sinks in. The tension in the room is palpable, and he knows that he has overstepped. This is no longer a simple intellectual debate. It is a direct challenge to the authority of the Church, and he is well aware of the consequences. Francesco continues, his voice growing more intense. "The Church has decreed that the Earth is the center of the universe, and its teachings are divinely inspired. To suggest otherwise is to flirt with heresy. I implore you to reconsider your thoughts, Matteo. The path you are beginning to walk is a perilous one." Matteo's mind races. The room feels suffocating, and the eyes of his peers seem to pierce through him like daggers. He knows that the Church will not tolerate such heresy, and yet he cannot turn away from what he has learned. The truth, as he now sees it, is far greater than the world the Church has constructed.
But can he afford to keep pursuing this path?
As the lecture comes to a close, Francesco gives Matteo a pointed look before turning to leave. The other scholars quietly disperse, but Matteo remains seated, lost in thought. He feels a growing sense of isolation, a realization that his intellectual curiosity has set him on a course that could cost him everything. The warmth of the knowledge he seeks now feels like a burning flame, one that might consume him if he is not careful. Later that evening, Matteo returns to his lodgings, the weight of the day's events heavy on his shoulders. As he sits at his desk, surrounded by the forbidden books he has come to cherish, he wonders whether he has made a grave mistake. Father Giovanni's warnings echo in his mind, and the faces of his fellow scholars seem to haunt him. What will happen if the Inquisition comes for him? What will happen if his family learns of the dangerous path he is walking? The sound of footsteps outside his door startles him, and he quickly hides the manuscripts beneath his desk. He knows that his time is running out. His search for knowledge has become a dangerous game, and the stakes are higher than he ever imagined. The next day, Matteo finds himself summoned to Father Giovanni's study. The older man's face is grim as he looks up from his desk. "Matteo," Father Giovanni begins, his voice tight with concern, "I have heard rumors. They say you have been questioning the teachings of the Church. They say you have been reading forbidden texts." Matteo's heart sinks, and he is momentarily speechless. He knows what is coming, and yet he cannot bring himself to lie. His mind races as he searches for words, but nothing seems to come. Father Giovanni continues, his tone softer now. "I care for you, Matteo. You are a bright young man with a great future ahead of you. But the path you are on is dangerous. If you continue down this road, you risk everything, your reputation, your life, your soul." Matteo feels the weight of the older man's words pressing down on him. He wants to argue, to explain that the knowledge he seeks is not a threat to his faith, but he knows that Father Giovanni will never understand. The Church's teachings are absolute, and Matteo's curiosity has become a rebellion against that very authority. For the first time, Matteo feels a deep sense of conflict. He is torn between his love for knowledge and his fear of the consequences. The Inquisition's grip on Florence is tightening, and the risk of being branded a heretic is real. Yet, in his heart, Matteo knows that he cannot abandon his search for truth. It has become a part of who he is, a calling that cannot be ignored. As Father Giovanni leaves the room, Matteo is left alone with his thoughts. The test of his faith has come, and he must decide whether to continue on the dangerous path of intellectual freedom, or to turn back and embrace the safety of the familiar teachings of the Church. But Matteo knows that there is no turning back now. The flame of curiosity has already been kindled, and it will burn brighter with each passing day. Chapter 5: The Tipping Point. Florence, 1494. The city is a powder keg of tension, and Matteo can feel it in the air. Rumors swirl about the growing influence of the Medici family, and the streets are filled with whispers of unrest. The people are restless, divided between those loyal to the old guard and those who seek a change in leadership. But for Matteo, the real conflict lies within himself. His search for truth has taken him deeper into dangerous territory. No longer can he pretend that the pursuit of knowledge is a harmless academic exercise. The stakes are real, and they are personal. Father Giovanni's warning still echoes in his mind, and Matteo knows that he is being watched. The Church has eyes and ears everywhere, and he cannot escape the fact that his actions have already raised suspicion. The first blow comes when Matteo is summoned to the cathedral by a messenger bearing a letter from none other than the Archbishop of Florence. The letter is terse, commanding Matteo to appear before the Archbishop at once. He has been accused of possessing heretical texts, and the charges are grave. The ink on the parchment is still fresh, and Matteo can already feel the weight of the Church's power bearing down on him. He spends the night pacing in his room, trying to gather his thoughts. His heart is in his throat as he imagines what the Archbishop will say, what the consequences of his actions will be. The thought of being branded a heretic fills him with dread, but at the same time, there is a strange sense of defiance within him. The books, the manuscripts, the ideas, these are not just intellectual curiosities. They are the key to understanding the world, to unlocking the mysteries that have been hidden from humanity for centuries. Matteo cannot let go of them, not now. The next morning, he arrives at the cathedral, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. The grandeur of the place seems to mock him as he steps inside, the towering stone walls a reminder of the Church's unyielding power. The Archbishop waits for him in a private chamber, his face stern and unforgiving. "Matteo," the Archbishop begins, his voice cold, "you have been accused of heresy. You have been found in possession of forbidden texts, works that challenge the very teachings of the Church. Do you deny this?" Matteo stands before him, his heart racing. The room feels like a furnace, and he struggles to keep his composure. The Archbishop's gaze is unwavering, and Matteo knows that his fate hangs in the balance. But as he opens his mouth to speak, he feels a surge of courage. "I do not deny it," Matteo says, his voice steady, though his hands tremble at his sides. "I have read those texts, and I believe in the truth they contain. The works of Copernicus, Archimedes, and others, they show us a different way of seeing the world. A way based on reason and observation, not on dogma and blind faith. I do not believe that knowledge should be suppressed. It is a gift to humanity." The Archbishop's eyes narrow, his expression darkening. "You speak of reason, young man, but what you advocate is heresy. The Church is the guardian of truth, and your actions threaten to unravel the very fabric of our faith. You have defied the teachings of the Church, and for that, there will be consequences." Matteo's heart sinks, but he refuses to back down. "I am not defying faith. I am searching for truth. The Church may have the power to control knowledge, but it cannot control the pursuit of it. I cannot ignore what I have learned." The Archbishop rises from his seat, his face a mask of authority. "Then you are a threat to the Church, Matteo. And a threat to society. The Inquisition will decide your fate." Matteo feels a chill run down his spine. The Inquisition, he has heard the stories. The heretics who have been dragged before the tribunal, the fiery trials, the public executions. He knows that the path he has chosen may very well lead to his death. But even as the Archbishop delivers his final verdict, Matteo feels an unshakable sense of clarity. He has come too far to turn back now. His belief in the pursuit of knowledge is stronger than his fear of the consequences. Whatever happens, he will not allow the church to silence him. "I will face the Inquisition," Matteo says, his voice resolute. "But I will not renounce my beliefs. I will not allow fear to dictate my actions." The Archbishop's lips curl into a grim smile. "We shall see how resolute you are when the flames of the Inquisition touch you, Matteo." With that, Matteo is dismissed, and as he leaves the cathedral, the weight of the world seems to press down on him. His future is uncertain, his life hanging by a thread. The Inquisition is coming, and there is no escaping it. The decision he has made is irreversible. As Matteo walks through the streets of Florence, he feels a strange sense of peace wash over him. He has chosen his path, and though it is fraught with danger, it is a path he must follow. He knows that the journey ahead will not be easy, but it is a journey that will define who he is. He has chosen the pursuit of truth over the safety of silence, and for the first time in his life, he feels truly alive. But as he reaches his lodgings, a new fear grips his heart. The Inquisition does not operate alone. There are spies everywhere, and the church's reach extends far beyond the cathedral. He cannot be sure who he can trust anymore. Even his closest friends may be agents of the church, waiting for him to slip up so they can report him. Matteo knows that his fight for knowledge has now become a fight for survival. He must tread carefully, hiding his discoveries and avoiding the watchful eyes of the church. Every conversation, every letter, every book he reads could be his undoing. But one thing is certain, Matteo will not give up. The truth is worth any sacrifice, and he is willing to risk everything to find it. Chapter 6: The Inquisition's Grip. Florence, 1495. The city has grown even more tense in recent months. The shadows of the Inquisition stretch longer with each passing day, and Matteo can feel the pressure closing in around him. Word has spread about his meeting with the Archbishop, and whispers about his heretical views echo in every corner of the city. The church's reach has grown tighter, its power unchallenged, and its agents are watching. Matteo knows that it is only a matter of time before the Inquisition makes its move. He has seen the signs: strange men in dark cloaks, whispers in taverns, the sudden disappearance of intellectuals who once dared to challenge the church's teachings. It is not a matter of if, but when. But despite the growing fear, Matteo refuses to yield. His resolve has only strengthened since his meeting with the Archbishop. He is more determined than ever to protect the knowledge he has uncovered and continue his pursuit of truth. He has come too far to back down now. Still, the weight of the danger presses on him, and he begins to take greater precautions. He hides his books in secret places, only retrieving them in the dead of night when no one can see. He moves cautiously through the streets, avoiding large crowds and taking routes that are less traveled. Every conversation, every meeting, every word he speaks could be a trap, and Matteo has learned to trust no one completely. One evening, as he walks through the streets, he is approached by a figure cloaked in shadows. The man's voice is low and urgent. "Matteo, we need to talk," the man says. "It's about your work." Matteo stops in his tracks, his heart skipping a beat. For a moment, he wonders if this is the moment he has feared. Has the church found him at last? But the man's tone is not one of accusation, rather, it is one of concern. The man steps closer, lowering his hood to reveal a familiar face, Giovanni, a fellow scholar who shares Matteo's passion for learning. Giovanni's face is pale, and his eyes dart nervously, as though he is afraid someone might be watching. "I've heard the rumors," Giovanni whispers. "The Inquisition is already watching you. You must be careful." Matteo's heart races. "What do you mean? How do you know?" Giovanni glances around, ensuring no one is listening. "There are informants everywhere, Matteo. People who will sell out their own mothers to protect the church. I know of at least 3 people who've disappeared because they were seen talking to you. The Inquisition is coming for you. You can't stay here much longer." Matteo's mind spins as he processes Giovanni's words. Disappearances? The Inquisition's grip is tighter than he had imagined. He has never felt so alone. Even those closest to him, his friends, his mentors, could be working for the church in secret. "I have to finish what I started," Matteo says, his voice filled with quiet determination. "I cannot stop now. I have to find the truth, Giovanni." Giovanni shakes his head. "You don't understand. The truth will get you killed. They will burn you at the stake, Matteo. You'll be another martyr, another name written in the annals of heresy. The church has no mercy." Matteo stares at his friend, feeling the weight of his words. He has always known that the church would stop at nothing to protect its teachings, but hearing it so plainly makes the danger real in a way he cannot ignore. But despite the fear gnawing at his insides, Matteo feels a surge of defiance. He will not be silenced. He cannot turn away from the knowledge that has opened his eyes to a larger world, one that extends beyond the boundaries set by the church. The truth, no matter the cost, must be preserved. "I appreciate your warning, Giovanni," Matteo says, his voice steady. "But I cannot run. I won't abandon my work. Not now." Giovanni sighs deeply, his face filled with sorrow. "Then you are a fool, Matteo. But if that's the path you choose, then at least take this." He hands Matteo a small, folded piece of paper. It's an escape route. A safe house, hidden from the eyes of the Inquisition. If things go bad, go there. They can protect you. For a time, at least. Matteo takes the paper, his fingers trembling slightly. He knows that Giovanni's warning is not just out of concern, he has seen the fate of those who have opposed the church firsthand. The risk is real. But still, he cannot walk away. "I'll keep it in mind," Matteo says, though he knows deep down that he may never use it. To run would mean admitting defeat, and that is a choice he is not ready to make. The conversation ends with a heavy silence between them. Giovanni offers one last warning before disappearing into the night, leaving Matteo standing alone in the darkened streets. The weight of his decisions presses down on him once again. The Inquisition is closing in, and soon, he will be forced to face the consequences of his actions. Over the next few days, Matteo receives word of a crackdown. The Inquisition is rounding up scholars, burning books, and arresting anyone suspected of heresy. The city is in turmoil, and the fear in the streets is palpable. Matteo's time is running out. As the weeks pass, he notices that even the simplest of actions have become fraught with danger. Every glance from a stranger feels like an accusation. Every knock at his door sends a jolt of terror through his body. But despite the growing tension, he continues his work, knowing that each day he spends in the pursuit of knowledge brings him closer to uncovering a truth that could change the course of history. But with each passing day, the noose tightens. The Inquisition's grip on Florence grows stronger, and Matteo knows that it is only a matter of time before he is caught in its web. His only hope now lies in the safe house Giovanni mentioned, but even that may not be enough to protect him. As he lies awake at night, listening to the distant sounds of the city, Matteo is consumed by a single thought: will the truth he seeks be worth the price he is about to pay? Chapter 7: The Legacy of Truth. Florence, 1496. The city is no longer the vibrant center of intellectual exchange it once was. Fear has taken root in every street, every home, as the Inquisition's grip tightens. The books Matteo so cherished, his lifeblood, his passion, are being destroyed in public bonfires, the flames licking the sky like the hands of an angry god. Scholars and artists, once free to express their ideas, now whisper in hushed tones, their words as dangerous as the flame itself. Matteo knows his time has come. The safe house Giovanni gave him is no longer an option. Word has spread about his involvement with banned texts, and he can no longer hide in the shadows. His name is known, and the Church will not let him slip away unnoticed. The trap has been set, and he is the prey. But even as the Inquisition closes in, Matteo is resolute. He will not go down without a fight. He knows that his life is in jeopardy, but his work, the knowledge he has uncovered, is worth every risk. He has glimpsed the larger truth, a truth that transcends the dogma of the Church and promises a future where humanity is free to think and discover for itself. He cannot abandon that truth now, not when so much is at stake. One night, as Matteo prepares to flee the city, he is approached by a group of fellow scholars. They have been watching him, waiting for the right moment to act. The group consists of both old friends and new faces, men and women who have also risked everything for knowledge, for truth. "We cannot let them destroy everything we've worked for," one of them says, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We must act now." Matteo looks around at his companions, feeling a flicker of hope in his chest. These are people who, like him, have dedicated their lives to the pursuit of knowledge. They understand the stakes, and they are willing to stand with him, no matter the cost. "We can't win against the Inquisition directly," Matteo says, his voice low. "But we can leave a legacy. If they destroy our books, if they silence our voices, we must make sure the truth survives. We must pass it on." The others nod, understanding the weight of Matteo's words. They have no illusions of victory, they know the odds are against them. But they also know that the work they have done, the ideas they have uncovered, will not be erased so easily. Knowledge, once ignited, cannot be extinguished. It will find a way to survive. For the next several weeks, Matteo and his companions work in secret. They copy their most important texts, smuggling them out of the city and into the hands of trusted allies. They write letters, sending word to scholars in other cities, in other countries, to ensure that the knowledge they have uncovered will not be lost. They hide their work in hidden libraries, in underground vaults, in places where the Inquisition will never think to look. But as their efforts intensify, so too does the danger. The Inquisition's agents are everywhere, and it is only a matter of time before they catch wind of Matteo's activities. One night, as he is leaving a safe house with a batch of hidden manuscripts, Matteo is ambushed. Cloaked figures surround him, their faces hidden behind masks. The Inquisition's agents have found him. Matteo's heart races as he is dragged through the streets, his hands bound. He knows what awaits him: the torture, the trial, the inevitable sentence. He will be condemned as a heretic, his life extinguished like so many others before him. But even in the face of certain death, Matteo does not falter. His mind is focused, his heart calm. He has done everything he can. The truth he has fought for will not die with him. The trial is swift and brutal. The Archbishop of Florence stands at the head of the tribunal, his eyes cold and unforgiving as he delivers the verdict. Matteo, you stand accused of heresy, of defying the teachings of the Church, of spreading dangerous ideas. For your crimes, you will be executed. May God have mercy on your soul. But Matteo's spirit remains unbroken. He stands tall as the flames of the pyre are lit, the fire slowly consuming him. In his final moments, he does not scream, does not beg for mercy. Instead, he feels an overwhelming sense of peace. His work, his search for truth, has not been in vain. The legacy he leaves behind, his manuscripts, his ideas, his unshakable belief in the power of knowledge, will endure. As the flames rise higher, Matteo's last thought is of the future, of the generations to come who will one day uncover the truth he fought so hard to protect. His death will not be the end, it will be a beginning. In the years that follow, Matteo's work begins to spread beyond the reach of the Inquisition. Scholars in other parts of Europe, in distant lands, find his writings and are inspired by them. The Church may have silenced him for a time, but the ideas Matteo championed will eventually spark a new era of intellectual freedom. The Renaissance, the age of discovery, will continue to flourish, and the truth Matteo sought will lay the foundation for a new world. And though his name may fade from history, the legacy of his work, the belief in the power of knowledge, the courage to question authority, and the unyielding pursuit of truth, will live on, inspiring generations for centuries to come.